Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever.
The Stanley Cup Final continues. Oilers, Panthers on ABC and ESPN+.
Don't slam the door. Could have kept going, but I decided not to.
I'm just envisioning someone coming out of work, turning the key to the car, and we've just hit him here with Metallica out of the door.
Well, this is not Metallica,
Sorry.
Not even close.
Queensryche,
yes. Still a great band. Very underrated band is Queensryche. And they're still on my bucket list to see. Not Jeff Tate, who was the original singer who's touring alone just as Jeff Tate. No, Queensryche the band, who has a different singer now, because Jeff Tate, the reason they broke up is because he decided to spit on his bandmates after an argument on stage, and it's kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah, not real pleasant. No.
I will say, though, Jeff Tate does tour with a better set list. So there you can be kind of torn.
Got it.
But I'd still rather see Queensryche the band with a different singer. Still sounds really good. Sounds like Jeff Tate. Just has more hair. It is hour 2 of the game after work. Mitch Fortner and Troy Coverdale. AJ is out today, so we'll have to pause and do Stump the Shaw whenever he gets back. Meanwhile, we're going to talk some more K-State baseball as they wrapped up their season with 2 losses in Charlottesville, Virginia to the Cavaliers. Losing on Friday 7-4, and they lost on Saturday 10-4 to wrap up their season 35-26. I just wanted to bring up the question, and Troy, I'd love to get your answer as well. Did K-State baseball reach expectations in 2024? I think I wanted to phrase it that way. Because when it comes to expectations in sports, if you really think about it, I take somebody's expectation as, I think for most, how you feel like they should be at their worst. Expectations are where you expect them to be, but really, if you want to talk about it, what you really feel like is an expectation, you're happy when they exceed them, obviously. You're not typically happy in the long run when they just do what you thought they should have done at the beginning of the year. Because, again, I still think an expectation is what you feel like they are at their worst. I may be wrong, but that's my opinion. That's how I look at it, expectations. Because when I say, they're picked to finish 5th in the Big 12 and NCAA tournament team, yeah, that's what you expect. But you truly expect him to go further than that. That's when you're happy, when your expectations are exceeded. So I'll ask Troy, did the Cats reach your 2024 expectations?
No, because I expected a top 3 finish in the conference myself and felt that this would be a better ball club, one that when you look back at things was in the top 25 to begin the season per couple of the polls. I feel like that this should have been a much better overall mark with this team this season because, and it was talked about even going into the super regionals, that both facets in terms of pitching and hitting finally were on the same page going into the postseason after having not been through much of the year. When the hitting was going, the pitching struggled, and when the pitching got going, the hitting struggled.
Yeah, simply well said. I can't really disagree a whole lot with you. Where they did meet and I think exceed my expectations is where they finished. Because expectations change as the season goes.
Yes.
At the beginning of the year, honestly, I think it's actually the same for me. Where they were heading into Selection Monday, that Memorial Day, compared to where they were expected to be and go at the beginning of the season, I think they kind of fell into the same situation. The expectation was to be an NCAA tournament team. Where I then go with the exceeded expectations and where I'm honestly a little bit happy about where things ended up is they got through their regional and made it to the Super Regionals.
Right.
Remember, that's 16 teams. You had a couple of surprises in there and a handful of 3 seeds, which makes it more fun when there's upsets like that. And Evansville almost gets it done. Well, they didn't get it done in that third game for sure. But boy, was it very interesting for Evansville at Tennessee those first couple of games. That makes it a lot of fun. Where K-State did not meet my expectations, I think it's one word, and that's consistency. I think that was the main ingredient that was missing this year, was consistency. I think Pete Hughes would tell you that very same thing. I think it was actually the press conference he did before the regional. We just got to get consistent. Haven't had that a whole lot this year. And when there isn't consistency, I think then when you start blaming depth or anything like that, because that was a big thing that Coach Hughes preached at the beginning of the year. They expect to have depth. And when I slow down and think with a clear mind about the season, honestly, they actually did have probably more depth than I thought they did. But it didn't have the expectation of consistency. And that's where the depth, where you think like a team's depth is, obviously it's not going to be as high as you thought it was or should have been because it's not consistent. Big part of depth is consistency. And you're right, because at the beginning, the pitching, the team ERA was too high. It was still bottom 2, bottom 3 for a lot of the year in the Big 12, which actually in the second half of the year, yes, the numbers did get better. And I thought was good in the postseason. It got better. The bats did not stay consistent. That's more of an individual game, of course. Brady Day also is an example of just not being as consistent as he should have been. That's where it comes down to me, where it didn't meet expectations, consistency. But getting to a super regional, nobody expected that. And I think that's where we all need to take a step back and admit that, did K-State actually do better than what we thought they would do? Let's think about that for a second. Did K-State do better than what we were expecting? I think results-wise, getting to a super regional, the answer is yes. Individually, I want to talk about a couple of things as well. Kalen Culpepper was better than what he was last year. That's honestly something I wasn't expecting. I thought he may have hit a ceiling last year because he was that good. I mean, heck, Kalen Culpepper, let's remember, he actually missed, I'm trying to count out the games, I think he missed 19 games last year because of an injury. But Kalen, who played third base last year, played 40 games and he hit .325. Kalen played 21 more games than he did last year and hit .328. I know when you just take a look, .325 to .328 is barely a jump, but when you add 21 games to that and there's still a jump, that's a big improvement. There's your consistency. There is a first-round draft pick. That was a great season for Kalen Culpepper. Taking on the shortstop role where he felt more like at home, but it's easier to make some mistakes at shortstop. Go ahead.
Just to even further that point, when you consider that last year he got shelved very early because of injury.
Yep.
This year he was able to keep himself healthy throughout the season And you see the impact he could have had even a year ago.
Batting average numbers was actually slightly up compared to last year. Brennan Jones made the biggest jump, in my opinion. Last year, Brendan was batting .238. This year, .303. He started in all 61 games. He stole 40 bases. That's the second most all time. And that is an area where K-State was very good at. On the bases, compared to last year, was night and day. Absolutely night and day when it came to the base running. Not just stolen bases. But when there's a ground ball to the shortstop and your guy at second is running to third, no bueno. You didn't see those mistakes this year. That was cleaned up. And by the way, the base stealing, 137, third most all time. This is interesting. K-State baseball this year, excuse me. K-State, as a team batting, struck out more than they ever did ever.
Ooh.
Set a new school record with 513 strikeouts. The previous high was 488. That was last year. Now, when you play more games than you did last year, it's only though 2 games different, but still had 513. So this team did strike out way too much. Way too much. Did not protect the strike zone as much as they should have. To counter that, K-State pitching struck out 590 batters. That is a program record. Let's see, what else did I want to throw out there? Going back to the stolen bases as well, you had 6 players that had double-digit stolen bases. So you had quite a bit of speed. Jaden Parsons, if he didn't get tagged out in that second game, he would have had himself 10, and there would have been 7 players with double-digit stolen bases. Because of the tougher schedule this year, and it was much tougher than last year, way tougher than last year, I will say that compared to last year, the numbers, difference-wise, even though there's quite a few numbers that took a dip compared to last year, it's not as big a dip as you're like, wow, that's bad, and that's a big drop, and it shouldn't have happened that way. When you calibrate with the difficulty of the season, I still think there's quite a few areas where you say, yeah, K-State was better in those areas with the numbers slightly dipping. If you're, the strength of schedule was way better than last year. That's what got K-State into the NCAA tournament. I think individual-wise, you would have liked to see a bit more growth in the number of guys. Like Rafael Pelletier. I hate to pick on anybody, but Rafael Pelletier did see a pretty big drop in numbers this year. You would have liked to see that obviously go the other way, especially with a kid that has that kind of talent. He's a great catcher, great leader for that team in Rafael Pelletier. He's coming back next year. I think that was evidence in the senior day because he was going to be a part of senior day festivities, but at the last second he decided not to be. He let the team know that he's coming back next year. We'll talk more about next year here in just a moment, but I will say I think team ERA was too high. You definitely wanted that to be under 4 this year. That maybe didn't meet expectations. Team batting average, 270 still isn't that bad, but if you want to be one of the best teams in the country, you have a better shot at getting to Omaha, you want to be better than 272. But the end result is a super regional. I think it's fair to also say that this team exceeded expectations. We never would have guessed that they would have made a super regional just where the momentum was at the end of the regular season and after the Big 12 tournament. They played their best baseball in that regional in Fayetteville, where they outscored their opponents, 33-12 or whatever that was. I did not expect that. It just wasn't enough, though, to carry over and play like they did. The consistency wasn't there in their super regional against Virginia. Again, that they had what it took to get it done. It just didn't happen. Virginia was more clutch. I think that's fair to say. I think that's a big difference. Virginia was just clutch. Their offense was better. That was a daunting 1-9 lineup. I mean, everybody was over 300 except for the guy in the 9-hole. Yeah, that's pretty good. Home run hitters, they only hit 2 in a super regional. K-State left a lot out there. It was a lot of what-ifs. Think about if one or two of those, gosh, it felt like 6 or 7 fly balls that were caught on the warning track. What if they had just a little bit more behind it in their home runs? There's honestly a couple of things that took place in this super regional that may have changed the momentum and changed those results. Unfortunately, K-State was left still 2 games away from their first ever College World Series. But I think that leads us into our next discussion. And that is what is next for K-State baseball. The steps that need to be taken. The talent. What does 2025 K-State baseball have in store? We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to The Game on News Radio KMAN. Troy, you brought up a good point during that Game Sports update that, the College World Series is going to be all SEC and ACC. It's going to be an SEC-ACC challenge.
Yuck.
Tennessee's won 2-1 over Evansville. Kentucky swept Oregon State. Florida State swept UConn. Of course, Virginia swept K-State. Florida sweeps Clemson. A&M gets 2 wins over Oregon. And North Carolina swept West Virginia.
How about the Florida-Clemson ending yesterday?
The Grand Slam?
That, the walk-off.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was A&M. A&M hit a Grand Slam against
But
Oregon.
the rally after Clemson had gotten their coach and hitting coach tossed because...
Hard tag?
No.
Right?
Home run followed by a bat spike. And
I've seen a couple of guys recently get thrown out because of a bat flip or whatever.
And so, of course, they had complaints over the fact that essentially there hadn't been a warning issued against Florida's Jack Caglione earlier when he had a bat flip. So Clemson took it a bit personal, if you will, that they got warned after the bat spike and wound up with both their coach and their hitting coach ejected. So they weren't around to see the end of it and get walked off. Painful. Oh, and ESPN royally made a hash of that whole thing to begin with. Because it was on ESPN, they had to shift it over to ESPNU for the final because of the Yankees-Dodgers game.
Oh, yeah, Sunday Night Baseball. That's right, yeah.
When they could have easily just started Yankees-Dodgers on ESPNU and kept the Florida-Clemson game on the big ESPN.
What I thought was really cool this weekend, old 3-5 from the Kansas City Royals. Eric Hosmer was an honorary cat this weekend, rooting on K-State via Twitter during the Super Regional because he said something about he was on a Royals caravan and they stopped in Manhattan once upon a time. So he's going to root for K-State. And for a couple of days he was a Wildcat. I thought that was pretty cool. He was like tweeting out the players by name, like by their handle on Twitter. So shout out to Eric Hosmer. Thank you for the memories. Meanwhile, where does K-State go after this season? We're talking Batcats. Still talking about the K-State baseball team. It's Mitch Fortner along with Troy Coverdale. A lot of directions you could look at this because obviously the draft is coming up soon. Transfer portal, who's leaving, who stays. You know, it's a lot of questions still to be answered that would paint a better picture. I just kind of want to start off like just what we know right now. We know Rafael Pelletier is going to be back for this upcoming season, as far as I know. He's back for this upcoming year. David Bishop, I would expect to be back, and he had himself a great junior year. He had over 260. Maybe he was playing his best baseball as of late, especially at the plate. Was really good. In that Fayetteville Regional, he had a home run. Jacob Frost out of the bullpen and as a starter potentially should be back. Meanwhile, who do you expect to leave? Well, actually, Chuck Ingram. Chuck Ingram has a decision to make. Is Chuck coming back for his last year of eligibility or not? So we'll see how that turns out. Meanwhile, who's all gone? J.J. Slack, Josh Wintrobe. Those are two guys out of your bullpen. Owen Borma's done. Jaden Parsons. I was really enjoying Jaden. At third base, he won the job about halfway through the year and got that job. From the draft, Tyson Neighbors, Jackson Wentworth, Caleb Culpepper, Brady Day. Not sure about Brennan Jones, but he's also a junior. Would love to have Brennan Jones back. I mean, there's potential that K-State can have their full outfield back because, of course, Nick English is in right field. True freshman. Great true freshman year for the young man. Let's see, the infield. So David Bishop, you'd hope, would come back. Brady Day is off to the draft. He's most likely done, of course. Kalen Culpepper's, of course, done. Jaden Parsons is going to graduate. And so you're looking at pretty much replacing your entire infield almost. Depth is also a question, and I think the biggest question, though, is pitching, obviously. Because Wentworth and Borma, they're, I would imagine, with Jackson Wentworth being potentially a top 3 round draft pick, for sure, he's going to be done. So there you're looking to replace a couple of starters. You're looking to replace a handful of guys in the bullpen, replacing pretty much of the infield. There's a lot to replace if you can't tell. With still, hopefully, you would think a decent amount of talent coming back. I'm just not sure about Brennan Jones and where his status is right now. And, like if he were to be drafted, which I'm sure he would, where would he go? Not sure. So I'll leave that just open. K-State's recruiting class right now for baseball is really not too bad, but it's like one of those situations where you're like, you have 3 guys in this class, and it's led by A.J. Avasco, who is a first baseman. He's a switch hitter from Lincoln, Nebraska. He's one of those guys could actually kind of go kind of high in the draft. So does he stick with the draft, or does he actually come play baseball at K-State? He's committed, of course. I mean, there's a handful of guys. Hudson Bird is a right-handed pitcher that could go in the draft. Blake Niss, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but Emil Valiquette is a very good baseball player. Right now, K-State's recruiting class for 2024, which is going to be coming to K-State next year, these are 2024 high school grads, is right now top 70. It's kind of middle of the pack in the Big 12. I think where a lot of work, though, is going to be done, of course, is in the transfer portal. So the question lies, though, does K-State have the resources to go get the necessary amount of pieces that they feel like they need to build the roster back up and go find a couple of starters at least in the transfer portal? Or are they going to get 1 or 2 guys? Did you hear that buzz as well? Did you get the same buzz?
Yeah, I think it's...
Is it the air conditioning?
I think they're working on
that. Yeah, our air conditioning is being worked on here, and so it's off right now. But that's my big question. Does K-State have the NIL resources like football, like basketball does right now, to go get what they need to take that next step? Because in 2025, that next step is necessary. What I mean by the next step is certainly you hope a super regional would be on the horizon once again at least. Have a team that can compete for that kind of run, but also compete in the Big 12. Be a better than 3 games or 2, from 3 games to an even record, a 500 record in Big 12 play. Can they get better there? Because I think it is important, like Troy said, which his expectation was to be a top 3 player or a top 3 team in the Big 12. Yeah, I think that's a fair step. That's a next step in the right direction. As Gene Taylor was saying to Brady Day, that was like caught on camera by somebody from KSNT. I think Glenn Kinley was there, and noticed that they were having a conversation and said to Brady Day, "You guys set the standard." Absolutely. This should definitely be the standard. That's what Coach Hughes is preaching every year. The standard is Omaha. Well, what kind of team now can be built to continue that Omaha standard? It's easy to say it, it's harder to do it. Well, they almost did it this year. With the expectations, like we mentioned in the last segment, you're not really feeling a super regional at that point, but they got there. So you start to think, all right, did they have enough talent to get there? They were close, but not quite there. So you're thinking, uptick in talent, how many guys can we get? They're going to need some work in the transfer portal. That's obviously something that has to happen. Can they go find that hidden gem starting pitcher like they have before, like an Owen Borma? Can they go find that gem in the portal? Is it a D3 kid, or can they get a Power 5 kid? It's a lot of questions, right? With so few answers. That's just where we're at right now. I think we're going to be watching this offseason closely for baseball than really it's going to be a closer watched postseason, preseason, offseason that we've watched in quite some time. Because it's important that K-State takes the next step. It's important for Pete Hughes to take that next step. You've set the standard. How do you continue to go further? You were that close to a trip to Omaha. Can you get there that next year? Pete Hughes bought himself some time. Because I wonder if they didn't make a regional this year, if they were snuffed again from the NCAA tournament, where does that put his status? Reaching a super regional is certainly enough to get you an extension and some more time to get to Omaha. How do you make the best of that time? I think K-State fans will be watching closer than they have been for quite some time to an offseason. All right, let's take a break. We'll talk Dan Hurley when we come back on the game. The game on K-Man, Mitch Fortner, and Troy Coverdale. Shout out to Adrian Martinez, former K-State quarterback, now the quarterback of the Birmingham Stallions. He has been named the UFL MVP. He'll play for a championship this Sunday against the San Antonio Brahmas in St. Louis coming up on Sunday at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure what channel that's going to be on, but I'm sure it'll be easy to find and watch the Cat play for a championship. Meanwhile, how about this news? I've been kind of lightly following this along because, I mean, what a switch it would be in the history of head coaches in the United States if this were to take place, but it's not going to happen. Dan Hurley, who has won back-to-back national championships at UConn, was offered a 6-year, $70 million contract with the LA Lakers. Earlier today, he turned them down. I was like, man, if you just kind of step back and think about this, what a job offer. Right. But would he want to deal with the Lakers situation? But, I mean, 6 years, $70 million. You don't deal with the transfer portal. You're not dealing with NIL. You're not recruiting. You're just coaching.
But you're dealing with LeBron and Bronny.
Kind of the least of his worries, if you ask me. If you're and you want to talk about one of the highest offers, or when it comes to job titles and how high that job is, when it comes to best jobs out there. I mean, being the head coach of the Lakers doesn't get much better than that when it comes to like goals in that profession. When you're coaching college basketball, you're dealing with a lot more. It's a lot more hectic.
He's a Northeast guy.
And his family's from there, right? Or his wife is from there, I should say.
Well, and his dad, coached in Jersey for years. He's a Northeast guy.
Okay, wait. So if the Knicks come after him,
ooh,
and give him 6 years, but not 70, 6 years, $50 million.
Do you really want to go
You take that.
Do you really want to go to work for that guy at Top MSG?
I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
That's the thing about it. I can sit here and I can find how many flaws to not take the jobs in most places. In the NBA especially.
I don't follow the NBA that closely. The ins and outs every day, I couldn't care less about it. But when the top basketball coach right now in college basketball gets that kind of money to go coach pro ball, he could have definitely used that as leverage. But he's definitely not going to make as much money at UConn. I think this past year he made $4.8 million. 4.8 and won a back-to-back national championship his second straight. Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of leverage can he turn that into? I'm sure quite a bit, but the payday is going to still be much less.
Is it a matter of just being comfortable and liking that comfort level?
I'm sure family had a lot to do with this. Goal-wise, maybe a little bit, but I'm sure this mostly had to do with family, where he's from, and what he's built. Took over the job. He's won back-to-back national titles. And by the way, certainly has a team this upcoming season with a lot of portal work that is going to chase a third straight national championship. Possibly, maybe, going to be the number one overall team, or the number one preseason ranked team. That typically doesn't get you too far, but it's still a possibility. UConn should be that good. And, of course, at number 2 would probably be K-State. And then at 23, maybe KU, because Hunter Dickinson is coming back. So maybe 23, 24 for KU.
Decline on investment
When you barely get out of the round of 32, I mean, how highly should we be ranking these guys anymore?
Wow.
Fair point?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. Declining return on that investment. There
Ask
is no
us
doubt.
anything when we come back.
Wrapping up the game on this Monday afternoon. All right, Mitch. What job could be offered to you at multi-millions of dollars that there is no way you'd take it?
Jeez. I mean, I've no idea.
See, I'm leaning towards anything that has to do with Congress.
Oh, like politics?
Job.
That's an easy job. I could sit in a room for hours and get paid a bunch of money. Oh, company needs me to vote one way? Sure. Actually, I'm not that big of a sellout, but maybe that's where I'd fall behind and not reach my multi-million dollars.
I mean, would you say it was something with the Cowboys front office?
Well, of course I would do that.
Oh, okay.
Now, if it was for KU...
There you go.
Or potentially the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Or the University of Texas.
Let's paint this picture. Say KU wanted to hire me and every day I had to wear a Jayhawk.
Ouch.
But it was for multi-millions of dollars a year. Are we talking a year or are we talking overall, like in a career or...
In a year.
I don't, honestly,
yeah,
I dislike KU so much that I don't think I could do it. That would be for Mitch Fortner, that would be the ultimate sellout move. To work for KU and wear a Jayhawk every day for money. That's as a sellout as I would get.
Yeah, I could see that. I could go with that.
Because it would purely just be a move where it's all about the money. A money move. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay.
Did you have an answer?
Yeah, mine would be Congress.
Okay.
There's no way I'd put myself through that.
You think it would be that bad?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Really?
Do you know what housing is like in D.C.?
That's why you're getting paid money.
Yeah, I don't want to stay at the office. Thank you very much.
Did you have one more?
No, go ahead.
You're the board today.
I had that one. So,
well, let's go ahead and just wrap it up then, because I do not have anything off the top of my head.
it's Monday, man.
By the way, Cooper Beebe is going to be throwing out the first pitch of the Royals game on June 27th. That's going to be what they call Gamer Night, and they have a Royals hat they're going to give away where the KC is pixelated.
Oh, where it's 8-bit basically.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Of course, I'm sure like the scoreboard and all that. I thought that'd be a good time, and I bet Cooper Beebe's got a nice changeup.
You know,
he's going to deliver on that first pitch.
I'm going to admit that is kind of humorous to think that that they go with the pixelated scoreboard when it's in high def.
June 27th is a Thursday, by the way.
Some of us grew up with it being dot matrix, for crying out loud.
I feel like I don't have a voice left for some reason. Also, boy, sunflower seeds before a show doesn't help. If you need your voice for something, don't eat sunflower seeds before a gig. For Troy and Mitch, we're back tomorrow. Go Cats.